AI can now read your mammogram better than most radiologists, and yet almost nobody's using it. Today we unpack the strange paradox at the heart of medical AI. Why proven tools gather dust while unproven chatbots race ahead. Why China just went live with AI doctors in real hospitals, and what happens when your electronic health record starts thinking for itself. From a team at the Synthetic Daily, it's Friday, May 8th, 2026. Good to have you with us.
We went through 21 posts, articles, and threads across LinkedIn, Substack, and YouTube over the past week to dive deeper into the world of AI in healthcare.
Here's a number that should not surprise anyone. We now have over 1,400 FDA-authorized AI medical devices. 1,400. The largest randomized trial ever conducted on AI-assisted mammography. More than 100,000 women showed these tools work. Eric Topol, the cardiologist and researcher at Scripps, wrote about this just days ago in his Ground Truths newsletter, calling it the paradox of medical AI implementation. The tools that have the strongest clinical evidence, the ones built on years of rigorous randomized trials across X-rays, CTs, MRIs, pathology slides, retinal scans, those are dramatically underutilized. Meanwhile, the generative AI tools, the chatbots, the large language models that patients are already asking about their symptoms, Topol's blunt assessment is that there's very little evidence they're actually benefiting patients or doctors on health outcomes. Administrative work, sure, but outcomes? Not yet.
And the part that doesn't get enough attention, Gary Marcus, the NYU cognitive scientist and longtime AI skeptic, jumped on Topol's analysis almost immediately, noting that even someone as bullish as Topol on AI in medicine had to concede this point. Marcus connected it to a recent Nature Medicine editorial, making the same argument. We need more rigorous proof before we hand clinical decisions to language models. The irony is thick here. The AI tools with the best evidence are collecting dust, while the ones with the least evidence are the ones patients are already using on their phones every single day.
Okay, here's where it gets interesting. While American hospitals deliberate over implementation timelines, China just did it. Neo Kim flagged this on LinkedIn this week, and the details are worth exploring. These aren't prototypes. These aren't pilot programs with careful academic oversight. These are live AI systems inside real hospitals, interacting with real patients right now. The architecture looks like this. Patient intake is automated. Symptoms get structured in real time. Probable diagnoses are generated in seconds, and treatment pathways are suggested before a human physician ever steps into the room.
Exactly. Kim is careful to note these systems aren't replacing doctors. They're compressing what he calls the diagnosis-to-decision loop. Think of it less as a robot physician and more as a system that does all the cognitive prep work, so that when the doctor finally does see you, they're not starting from scratch. They're reviewing and confirming rather than discovering.
This is a fundamentally different philosophy than what we're seeing in the US and Europe. The FDA's January guidance this year actually reduced oversight on AI software whose recommendations a clinician can independently review. In other words, America's regulatory framework still assumes a human is always in the loop, always checking the AI's homework. China appears to be building systems where the AI does the homework, hands in the assignment, and the human signs off. It's a subtle but enormous distinction, and it's going to create very different patient experiences on opposite sides of the Pacific. The biggest story out of HIMSS 2026 last month wasn't a product launch or a keynote speech. It was a category shift. Agentic AI moved from pitch deck to production. And if you're not tracking what that means inside a hospital, let me paint the picture. An agentic AI system doesn't just answer questions. It reasons across multiple steps, takes action inside existing software, and completes workflows without a human driving every keystroke.
Epic, the electronic health records giant that touches something like 250 million patient records in the US alone, now has between 160 and 200 active AI projects. They're building over 150 AI features for 2026, including something called Comet, predictive models pre-trained on their massive Cosmos dataset of real-world patient journeys. Oracle went even further. They debuted an entirely new AI-powered EHR built from the ground up with a voice-first design. Embedded agentic AI that can draft documentation, propose next steps like lab tests, suggest follow-up visits, and automate coding.
Meanwhile, Mount Sinai Health System has gone live with open evidence integrated directly into Epic. What's interesting about their approach is how they've tackled the hallucination problem. The system's outputs are grounded exclusively in peer-reviewed literature. No improvisación, no creative interpretation. And they've extended access beyond physicians to include nurses and pharmacists, which tells you something about where the workforce pressure really is. The ambient documentation market alone generated roughly $600 million in revenue last year, growing 2.5-fold. 72% of practices using AI say their primary tool is an ambient scribe. Your doctor is already using this. They just might not be telling you. One more thing before we wrap the main stories. There's a molecule called ISM 001. 055, and it represents something genuinely new under the sun. Developed by In Silico Medicine, it's the first AI-designed drug that targets an AI-discovered disease target to show positive results in Phase 2A clinical trials. Let me unpack why that sentence matters. Historically, AI has been used to optimize known compounds or screen existing libraries faster. This is different. The AI identified the biological target, meaning it found what to attack, and then designed the molecule to attack it. That's the full stack of drug discovery, automated.
Which is wild, right? And the broader industry is taking notice. Drug Target Review declared 2026 the year AI stops being optional in pharmaceutical R&D. And that's not hyperbole when you look at how clinical trials are being restructured. Tools like Trial Match AI are using machine learning to match patients to trials in ways that would have taken human coordinators weeks. Applied Clinical Trials Online published a piece in February describing what they called a sharp divide emerging between organizations that have built AI fluency into every layer of their clinical process and legacy operators still running isolated pilots.
This divide isn't just about technology adoption. It's about organizational architecture. The companies pulling ahead have rebuilt their talent pipelines, their governance structures, their data infrastructure, all of it oriented around AI as a core workflow rather than a tool you pick up for special occasions. And with the EU AI Act's high-risk obligations hitting in August, the compliance landscape is about to add another layer of complexity for anyone who hasn't already built that infrastructure. So let's talk about the big story. Azim Azza, who runs the Exponential View newsletter, surfaced a distinction this week that I think deserves more airtime. He's been reflecting on how AI has become completely ambient in his daily work. Not a tool he picks up and puts down, but embedded in every process. And he draws on research by Shaw and Nave that separates cognitive offloading from cognitive surrender.
Here's the difference. Cognitive offloading is strategic delegation. You used to memorize phone numbers. Now your phone does it. You lost nothing that matters. Cognitive surrender is different. It's an uncritical abdication of reasoning itself. Azar's concerned about where that line is, especially as AI moves from handling your contact list to, say, helping you make clinical decisions about a patient's cancer treatment.
This framework matters because it cuts across everything we've been talking about today. The Mount Sinai system that only outputs peer-reviewed evidence, that's designed to enable offloading, not surrender. China's AI doctors that generate diagnoses before the physician arrives, that might be either depending on how carefully that physician reviews the output at 3 in the morning during their 12th hour on shift. The ambient scribes documenting your doctor's visit, offloading clearly. But the agentic AI that proposes treatment pathways and automates coding, that's getting closer to a line that different institutions, different countries, and different patients are going to draw in very different places. All right, let's zoom out and talk about the bigger picture. What are the main themes running through everything we covered today? The first big theme is the evidence adoption inversion. Healthcare AI adoption is running inversely proportional to clinical evidence. The most proven tools are least deployed, while the least proven are most used by consumers.
Next, regulatory divergence as competitive strategy. National regulatory philosophies on AI in medicine are becoming de facto industrial policies, with light touch or absent oversight enabling faster deployment that may reshape global standards of care.
Next, infrastructure versus application. The shift from AI as a point solution to AI as embedded EHR infrastructure represents a phase change where opting out becomes architecturally impossible rather than merely strategically unwise.
And the last one, the autonomy spectrum. The real governance question isn't whether AI should be in healthcare, but where each institution places its cursor on the spectrum from decision support to autonomous action. So if you're going to take away a few things from today's episode, here's what I'd remember.
Number 1, the biggest risk in medical AI right now isn't that it doesn't work. It's that the stuff that works isn't being used while the stuff that hasn't been proven is everywhere.
Number 2, by August 2026, the EU AI Act's high-risk obligations will force every company selling clinical AI into Europe to have governance infrastructure that most haven't started building.
Number 3, if your hospital's EHR vendor is Epic or Oracle, AI isn't something you'll adopt. It's something that will be turned on underneath you whether you're ready or not.
And finally, the question isn't humans versus AI in medicine. It's whether the human in the loop is genuinely reviewing or just rubber stamping at 2 a.m.
That's the Synthetic Daily for today. All the sources and links are on the website if you want to dig deeper.
Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow.